I don't believe she flagged for offside, if my memory is correct. Anyway, he
Yeah,
wasn't very happy, and perhaps not so great to be chasing the officials after the game. But he
yeah,
was obviously very uptight about it not being given as a goal. So yeah,
yeah.
I think probably the right decision was made. The only other thing I would say that I was quite surprised that they had VAR on a friendly game. I mean, a friendly game at Nottingham Forest ground, big deal. Why do you want VAR?
Yeah.
And all it did was condemn us to a bigger loss, didn't it, than it would have been.
Yeah,
What was
I was
your
quite
view?
I
What
was
was
quite
your view of that?
surprised. Yeah. Yeah. So I was quite surprised with the VAR as well. I
Mm,
thought when they said, "Oh, we do have VAR," I'm thinking it's a friendly game.
yeah, why? Yeah.
Why waste all that? Well, no, it's not a waste anyway. It's a lot of revenue there. But yeah, so to answer your question, my view is actually contrary to yours. So I think it was a goal because his hands was in a natural position. He wasn't stretching his hand or anything. He wasn't
No.
aware. He wasn't aware where the ball was. He was anticipating the ball probably to head it into the net, but then instead the ball touched his hands. So
Mm.
I don't think he meant to impact play in any way or to obstruct. Well, not obstruct, but you know what I mean. So I think the goal should have stood. I think so. I think the goal. I think it's a goal. Now the other question that I would ask myself, that would have that is sort of influenced my decision a little bit. And I'm going to ask you the same question before I answer mine. Uh, what would you have still thought that the referee made the right call if it was a game where we had something at stake?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question, if I may say, because what it touches that question is, do we have sort of unconscious bias? And I
Yeah,
think that's a very interesting point. I think one of the things I've always, dare I say, prided myself on as a football fan is I genuinely, I think, have a sense of fair play when I watch a game.
right.
Invariably, my team is involved in that game, so there could be some unconscious bias, which probably manifests itself on those occasions. I might hurl some abuse at the linesman, which I'm only just saying I don't do that. I mean, people around us sometimes do. They invite, they suggest to the linesman what they might like to do with their flag on occasions, and sometimes it just creates a good laugh. And even the linesman, believe it or not, sometimes they put a thumbs up behind their back because they're laughing too. So it's all in good sport, generally, all in good spirit, I think, for the most
Right.
part. But yeah, honestly, if Palace, give away a penalty now, of course, from the stands, you can't. We're quite close to the pitch. You can't always see just the details of the intricacies of a tackle or whatever, so you can't really make a judgment. Some
Yeah,
are pretty obvious, and of course, if they then show it up on the screen
yeah,
before the penalty is taken off. If it's a penalty and we've given it away, a lot of home fans on any team will say, "Oh, it wasn't a penalty," and all the rest of it. Only
yeah.
to perhaps get home and watch Match of the Day, and you see it damn well was a penalty.
Right.
And the opposite can be true. And the measure I always take is how would I have felt if that was a penalty. I didn't want to admit it though, but how would I have felt if it had been should have been a penalty for Palace and they weren't given it? And I'd say, well, that wouldn't, I wouldn't like that. So that's often a measure of honesty. If that was a penalty, I didn't want to admit it though. But how would I have felt if it had been should have been a penalty for Palace and they weren't given it? And I'd say, well, that wouldn't, I wouldn't like that. So that's often a measure of honesty with yourself. I do try to be fair, but let's face it, lots of tackles and incidents on a football pitch are seemingly very much 50-50 anyway, so you can't really judge that. But anyway, to come to your question, it's a good question there. If there had been something on it, I think it would depend just what was on it. If it was one of the last couple of games in the qualifying matches and we needed desperately to get 4 points out of 2 games, and then you were denied a goal like that, then yeah, I think that's where unconscious bias could certainly creep in, and you say, of course it was a goal and all the rest of it, because we're all human, and perhaps we don't always realise we have this unconscious bias. But that said, I do say that I try to be fair. And the other thing, when you get other teams coming to Selhurst Park, obviously, and I always really appreciate seeing the great players when they come. And I can remember seeing Beckham when he came. I won't say not sure he was a great player. He was a very good footballer. Let's face it, a very solid international captain as well. And Wayne Rooney was always excellent. I remember Michael Owen. And it always saddens me a bit in football that the really top players almost from the off get booed by the home fans, or even the away fans, depending on the situation. And I always think, for goodness sake, don't do that. Just watch and see how great players play. I mean, Harry Kane's a good example. Not that I don't remember him getting booed much, but he was. I always felt he's a top world-class footballer, which I believe he is. He's superb. But if these top players, whenever Rooney came, people always used to sing horrible things to him. You great fat what's it and all the rest of it, which he wasn't. And he's a brilliant footballer. And of course, when you're then cheering England, you cheer all these people, but it's a bit of an irony when they're coming with their clubs. I mean, they can handle it. That's part of the deal, isn't it? They know they're going to be treated a bit roughly. But I always like to watch the great footballers if some of them come to us, and we can watch them. And I think sometimes football fans can miss out on seeing great footballers because they just don't. They won't see something and think, wow, that was good. What a brilliant pass that was. No, it's the opposition. They're terrible. And you only see half a game, I think. So, yeah, I go back to your question. I really, even if we were desperate for something, I still think I would.